Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia College Football Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me, our co-hosts, Immaculate View and Moen After Dark. How we doing tonight, guys?
Good.
Excellent.
So we know it's Valentine's. We aren't going to do this for very long. This is supposed to be a special episode with Bob Thompson coming on. His schedule is extremely tight, so there is a chance he won't be able to make it. I just want to let everybody know that he was trying to fit us in. So we're going to go ahead with a show like we normally would do on a Wednesday, talking about the things that are headlining news today. And hopefully he's able to pop in for a few minutes and answer these really telling college football playoff announcement questions that we all have. And we anticipate him being here and doing that for us. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to all the members that we already have of the College Football Mafia, Big 12 Mafia shows. I want to ask anybody else who's new, please take a second and follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube, and then consider becoming a paying member of the Mafia family. And here's a video to explain how we actually do that.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
Well, that was pretty awesome, Moen. You put that together, and I appreciate it very much. I want everybody to know Moen puts in all the production value we have here, and he deserves all that credit. All right.
Right.
So go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and make sure you become a member because this costume budget's getting out of control. So
It's a good one today.
Yeah, why don't you tell everybody who you are today, Moen?
I'm Moen Targaryen.
Moen Targaryen, sitting there on the Iron Throne in the throne room. We appreciate the Targaryen of Moen being here. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to be here for about an hour. We know it's Valentine's. I want everybody to be able to get out and spend time with their families. But tonight we thought we'd do some headlines. And before we do that, let me do a quick shout out to everybody who's here early, maybe a bunch of degenerates that don't have anything else to do on a Wednesday, Valentine's Day. That would be Buckshot Kid, Conundrum, Joey Z. Let's see, Daniel Gygax, Glenn Lumen, all the way from the Philippines. Kat Dean says howdy. Let's see here. Jan Hulk from Slovenia. Antoine Codes is here. Danny McNierney, another member. Let's see. I already did Kat Dean. Let's see here. We got Clenod Wycliffe. Do I have that right? Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? I don't know. What does that mean?
It's a song.
Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't have the answer. Do you guys have the answer?
I think it's supposed to be a compliment.
Okay, I take that. I'll take that if it's a compliment. If it's not, I'll ignore it. Jared Jones is in the house. He says, what's good, all? It's good to see you here, Jared. The Big Lubbock is here, saying we're early today. Let's see here. We've got a bunch of new people. Adam Antaberos, is that how you say it? Adam Antaberos. Anyway, thanks for being here. You're a member, and we appreciate it. Boy, I cannot believe with how many people are here early. DS Terps says go Terps. Well, that's pretty simple. Nice. Grand Dawn, another member, says with you. Edward Wayner is in the house. Daniel Montcastle is in the house. Actually, let's get this from Edward. He says, howdy from Red Lobster, San Marcos, Texas, waiting for a table. Okay.
Are you out on your Valentine's dinner joining us?
I'll go as fast as I can just for you, Edward.
Impressive.
Daniel Montcastle says, hi, guys. I think that's it. All right. So news items today. Did you guys have anything you wanted to start off with? Since we're a little loose in the time right now, is there anything you want to get off your chest before we go into news stories?
Mr. Targaryen, anything?
Yeah, that's a song by the Carpenters, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's
Carpenters,
popular in
okay.
the 70s.
I
won't do a rendition, although it is Valentine's Day. I will not do a rendition. But I wanted to say it's interesting that the SEC is suddenly going to 9 conference games.
Right.
They're kind of slipping it out there. Like one guy said, "Oh yeah, we're looking into it." I mean, when you get into the article, it's It's,
Well, let's just do it right now. Let's
Sure.
just jump in on this second. Let me go to present. We'll go to share screen. We'll go to entire screen, and we'll go to here. All right. So there's two articles that I wanted to start off with, and then we can talk about it. The first one is this Ross Dellinger article. It's more repost of a Inside Texas story. It says, in this story, Texas AD Chris Del Conte indicates that the SEC are targeting in the 2026 season to begin a 9-game conference schedule, a long-expected move away from 8 games. And then the other one that I wanted to get out here was this On3 article that we may jump into if we have time, that says Texas AD Chris Del Conte confirmed the SEC is progressing to a 9-game conference schedule by 2026. So, out of those two things, what were you thinking straight up, Moen?
Money, money, money. They want that money.
Right.
ESPN will have to give them a little more money, and that money can be used for expansion.
Mhm.
Really quick, before we jump into that anymore, I want to get the super chat really quickly. Lonnie Johnson, $2 super chat. It says, pray for Kansas City. If you didn't know, and we're not going to cover it right now because I don't want to take away from the seriousness of it. There was a shooting. 8 to 10 people have been shot. I don't know how many are dead. At the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl celebration. Very, very sad day. And I appreciate you reminding me to at least talk about that for a second, Lonnie. You guys want to say anything about that?
No,
Okay.
thoughts are with the victims, and hopefully everything gets all straightened out there. And just a sad time that for a celebration like that people are going through that. So that's terrible.
Agreed. Okay. All right. Now we can go into it. Immaculate, you were going to say something.
Yeah. And just pulling from the article, Del Conte's. Do you have the article? It says we have 8 games scheduled right now. We're working on going to a 9-game schedule, but we have ways to go. We have a ways to go with that. So it's signaling it's being worked on. It's not finalized. I would say this year we have an 8-game schedule. The following year we have another 8-game schedule. Then we'll look at going into a 9-game conference schedule. So the way that they presented this, it kind of looked like they were making a statement about it, whereas this guy was just kind of going off the cuff, during an interview, saying this, and so that we know going on inside the SEC, they are targeting that as an idea, but it's not for sure. So I definitely agree that I think that this is probably going to be tied to expansion. There was some talk in there about how Missouri and Texas A&M, they had some work on their schedule that came 2 years later, but that wasn't an increase of the number of games. So I think that this has more to do with than just Texas and Oklahoma, and that this might be part of any kind of talks that are going on for expansion. This might be being thrown out there as what you'd give to ESPN for the extra money.
Moen?
Yeah, this is suddenly this gets thrown out there the day after the ESPN article.
That's what I was thinking too, the timing.
Yeah. So this is basically the SEC signaling that they're ready to move forward with 9 games if ESPN is willing to up the pay. Now that they have all their pay, they've got all their structure and everything that they're going to spend. Now they know what they have available. The SEC wants a little more money.
Let's talk about that timing really quick to refresh everybody. Last week, there was an announcement that the WB, Fox, and ESPN had come to an agreement to beginning in this fall to broadcast all the football games for all of college football that are related to those 3 brands and do it in a single client. The purpose of that was to get all these contracts aligned so they're all saying the same thing. Then we have what happened yesterday where they leaked the college football playoff negotiation numbers, and there's thoughts of monopolies and collusion, and yet because they put in that little one line that said we can sublicense any of these games we want, that gives them the sort of wiggle room to work around any of those violations that there might be, and allows them to really do price fixing. And that's just a calendar of events the last 10 days. You guys want to add anything to that?
No, there's been a lot going on in the past few days. So for this to be coming out, for him saying this now, for it to be connected to these previous events going on, I would not be surprised at all. It's just, it's interesting to see that this kind of gets leaked out by a Texas guy. And I know we've got Kenneth Evans in chat, who is also a Texas guy, and he didn't actually have the fondest things to say about Mr. Del Conte. So I don't really know, if this is just him kind of going on his own, or if this is actually an official thing going on internally with the SEC. But we've been watching for this. We've been watching for them to move to this, and for that to probably be a signal for expansion talks. So I think that's where we're at with this. And in terms of Moen, if this connected to the whole big concept of moving forward, that would be very interesting indeed.
Let's get to the second super chat again from Lonnie, updating us on the stats related to this shooting. One person's dead, 22 are hurt, and 9 are kids. So again, very sobering. Hate to hear it, and definitely prayers and considerations are going their way. I think there will be a lot of fasting this weekend for people asking for guidance, and yeah, that's extremely sad. All right. So Moen, knowing what we sort of talked about, that none of this is an accident. Where's the Big Ten right now for number of games? Let's tell everybody where the Big Ten is.
The Big Ten's they're currently at 9. They'll probably go to 10.
Okay. So let's update everybody. Fox is the Big Ten network, is Big Ten. They have some stuff with CBS and NBC, but the primary rights holder is Fox.
Yep.
And if they go to a 10-game schedule, that just adds, because there's so many teams in the conference, it just adds all that inventory into their broadcast windows. So that's the purpose of adding those games. What it does, though, is it shrinks the number of G5 games that you could possibly fit into a season. 2 at the max, and that's if you stay with G5.
It does, but it also increases your payout.
Yeah, of course, right? So they're tied together. Nothing happens in isolation. You lose a little access, but you get more money. And I think over time, what we're going to see is that access is going to shrink to almost nil over time.
And remember, there's also the double savings. Like if these guys aren't scheduling some of those FCS small-time games, you're not paying out the payment that they make to get those teams to come play.
Right.
So, some of those are upwards of, $1 million or more. Sometimes it gets pretty outlandish. So it's a pretty significant savings on the back end too.
Let's get to a couple comments here while we're talking about this right now live. Chris Del Conte just says stuff. You shouldn't take it too seriously. That's from Kenneth Evans. Moen just mentioned that. Jared Jones, one of our members, says, did that AD Chris Del Monte really say Texas would probably not play a home game with Texas Tech type, only if they come to Austin because they need 7 home games? I didn't hear any. Did you guys hear that?
I haven't gone that far into this. I got to the point where we were, and I haven't even really had a chance to go into that. It wouldn't surprise me. Like that sounds rather.
That would suck. It would suck for Texas Tech.
Yeah, it sounds rather Texas-like to kind of be talking in that manner. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I definitely am not going to sit there and say, "Oh, I don't believe that." It says Sky says it's in the article, so.
Yeah, it is in the article, and basically it was they didn't want to play in stadiums that don't hold enough fans.
Oh.
So they want to play in stadiums that hold 70, 80, 90,000 kids. They don't want to play in stadiums that, quote unquote, only hold 50,000.
Right. Okay. Interesting comment. How about this one from Edward Wayner, one of our members, says, will the ACC follow suit and go to 9 games, especially having 17 teams plus Notre Dame? Big 12 is already at 9 games. It's an uneven calendar. So what do you guys think about that?
The ACC, who knows what the ACC is going to be comprised of. They're certainly not going to get any more money from ESPN by adding a 9th game.
Right.
They're already very underpaid. I think at the end of the day, this signal from the SEC that they're taking more in 2020, or they're going to possibly get more money from ESPN in 2026. That does not bode well for ESPN renewing the ACC
Right.
in 2027.
They might just go all in on the SEC and walk
Yeah.
away from the ACC. That's a
Mhm.
potential
Yeah,
outcome.
I would not expect to see the ACC schedule expand.
Right.
They're at this point in time, they're not being given any type of more money for that schedule, especially when that schedule may not include Florida State, Clemson, etc. They're not getting any money until that gets determined.
You guys keep tagging those comments. I want to make sure everybody knows I just posted scroll up a little bit in the comment section. I posted the links to both of these articles. We want to give credit to the people who produced those, definitely On3 and Inside Texas and Ross Dellinger. They all deserve credit. I want to make sure everybody's getting that. So that credit stuff's important to me. All right, let's talk about the next topic. Let me move this over. Let's talk about helmets and headphones in helmets and microphones in helmets. Basically what the NFL's been doing, what now, 20 years? Something close to that.
Yeah, easily.
So
Yeah, they could have done
let
this
me
a while
bring up
ago.
this article. Let me bring up this article so everybody knows where we're talking about this one. I will copy and paste that one in the comment section. In case you didn't hear and weren't following on news today, there was a lot of news, so you can be forgiven for not seeing it. Ross Dellinger put this post out about helmet communications is what he calls it. And he says, ACC approved in-game helmet communications and sideline video usage pending NCAA approval. Each concept was successfully used in bowls and has been on track for adoption at NCAA Rules Committee meetings week of February 26th on that story. And then you can go through, you guys can read the sub story. But I don't know why we haven't been here a long time ago. This should have happened a long time ago.
Interesting picture they used for that article.
Right. Okay. Tell everybody why that's
No
an interesting
connection
picture.
whatsoever, I'm sure.
Yeah, that just seems like they wanted to
None.
praise Harbaugh and JJ McCarthy.
Absolutely. Like great season, guys.
Awesome.
That's what that is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is basically to get rid of sign stealing.
Yeah.
This is basically the route they have to go to get rid of sign stealing, which is fine. I think what's going to happen though is you're going to prepare a lot of NFL quarterbacks are going to be a lot more NFL ready coming out of college football, using this system as opposed to signs. I kind of hate to get rid of signs because I think it helps you build mental acuity. But I think you're just going to have a lot more quarterbacks joining the NFL that are going to be ready to go day one than we do now.
I agree. Some of
Go
the
ahead.
talk was that each conference had their own helmet deals with the different companies, different models makes for them. So trying to get all of those approved by the NCAA for health and safety reasons in order to have the to be wired up, I guess was a problem. I don't know why it would be. It's just maybe more work than they wanted to do. But now all of a sudden, it's not a big deal. It's okay. Now the NCAA looks bad over Michigan. So we'll probably get that approved. And within a season, maybe two, we'll probably be seeing that in all conferences.
All right. I'm going to bring up Bob Thompson's quotes. Well, first, let's get to a few more comments here. I want to make sure everybody knows we're reading those comments. First of all, all we do is win, win, win. Who's a Michigan fan says, well, guess Michigan needs to hire a radio communications expert from the military. Yeah, they should do that.
Better do that.
I think he's currently going to be in the NFL here pretty quick. But Jan Holk, one of our members, says, when would Big 10 think about going to 10 games? When they go to 20th schools?
Yeah, you got to pay for that expansion somehow. If they get a 10th game in there that they can pitch, that gives you more marquee matchup possibilities within the paradigm there. So, yeah, that's with a 20th school, you're going to have to go to 10 games.
Yeah, that's been a talking point of ours here on the show for a while now, that we expect when these expansion times happen for these conferences that it's going to get paid for at least partially by an expansion of the conference schedule. So I think that if the Big 10 moves to 20, that we'll probably start to see talk about them moving to 10 as well.
Let's get to another comment here. Daniel Gygax says, why would ESPN pay more knowing that the contract with the SEC had 8 conference games per school?
Because they're getting an extra game.
Yeah, and it's a much improved game. It's going to have better ratings, lot more watchability. So which means, a little bit higher on the marketing side, on the advertising side. And it also probably helps with the cable providers as well. So, yeah,
I just think it's more product they can resell.
I mean, they still had those home games for the SEC versus FCS opponent.
Right.
They still had that, but those never have good ratings. I mean, even SEC people don't watch those. So it's a pretty big jump in value for ESPN when the SEC is willing to do this.
Moen's talked about those money games several times. Cincinnati visiting Ohio State, for instance, might be or Marshall visiting might be a money game that these schools need, and those teams are basically being supported by Ohio State for some cash.
Yep.
There's going to be less of those now. The more conference games, the less out of conference, obviously.
So. Well, I don't think so for the Big Ten, because the Big Ten has protected out of conference. Like the Cy-Hawk Trophy is going to be played still. Ohio State's going to play a small in-state school.
But you're not going to have more options than maybe one game, is all I'm saying.
Well, there's a problem with that. In Iowa, there actually is state mandate that one of the teams, Iowa or Iowa State, has to play Northern Iowa every year. So they've been passing that back and forth. And Nebraska, since they don't have an in-state, they've kind of helped jump in and play them as well. So when Nebraska's playing them, we're not having to. But that's going to have to be protected. That is state mandated. And I'm pretty sure that's probably the case in like Michigan with all those schools, and Ohio, so and plenty of others. So that's going to be tight. And Iowa for sure is not going to have any room for any type of scheduling. It's going to be Iowa State and Northern Iowa in some years.
I want to take a moment to thank everybody for being here. We're over 100 people watching live on a Valentine's Eve, if you can believe it. I appreciate everybody being here. We're only going to be on for about an hour. We were expecting Bob Thompson to be here. He had a very tight schedule, however. So I'm not going to promise he's going to make it by the end of the show. But if we aren't able to catch him tonight, we may have to reschedule. He was trying to fit us in, and schedules are tight. So no problem with that. But the brands we're currently working with as a team now: College Football Mafia, BIG12 Mafia, Big West Mafia, Wild Ute University, and Moen After Dark. I want to encourage everybody to follow those on Twitter and track all the notifications associated with them. This is where we're putting out our new products. Big West Mafia is all the West Coast. Ute University is about realignment and the fits that each school has and plays for each of these new conferences, potential new conferences they may go to. And anything to do with the business side, money side of college football, Wild Ute University answers those questions. And then, of course, Moen After Dark. Moen, why don't you tell everybody what you do on your show?
We drink whiskey and talk to chat.
That's basically it.
That's basically it. It's chat show to run. So
it's the same content, same concept, and we do go over some topics, but it's just really focused on kind of connecting with folks in chat on those topics. It's just
so we have Big West Mafia on Monday. We have BIG12 Mafia on Tuesday, Wednesday. Friday we have our Best Freaking Friday or something?
Big Freaking Friday show.
Big Freaking Friday.
BFF.
That's the party day, and then Moen After Dark on Sundays. All right, let's move along. We don't want to waste a ton of time here. I want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow us all on Twitter. All right. Let's get to a few more questions before I get to my next thing, which is basically quotes from Bob Thompson, the second best thing to actually having him here. Kenneth Evans says the Texas plays in the Big House next year. Ohio State home for home in 25 and 26, and then Michigan for 27. So Texas is playing big games if they're traveling to the Big Ten. I don't want to
see Michigan doing that.
What's that?
I said it's good to see Michigan doing that now.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. All right. I'm going to get to our next topic is Bob Thompson's quotes from yesterday. Let me share my screen here. Okay. So this is where we're at right now. Let me take down our banner here. All right, today I did a sum up tweet basically covering everything we covered last night in our realignment review of the college football playoff negotiations and the proposed deal that hasn't been approved yet, but they're currently talking about, and it's in negotiation right now. To sum it up, I'm just going to read it. It says, to anyone concerned about the new college football playoff negotiation, I say this: the new project connecting the WB, Fox, and ESPN announced last week was the necessary step to avoid cries of collusion and monopoly this week. If all the three are working together now, then ESPN can claim they aren't controlling the process, and I would include the broadcasting. However, we know better. The purpose of the broadcasting agreement is to stifle competition and go to a single bid system. In turn, this is essentially price fixing, keeping the cost down. Those are all catchphrases, and I say them with full vigor. I really believe that somebody's going to sue, and they're going to sue back, and they're going to counter those things exactly. Monopolies, price fixing, keeping costs down, collusion, all that. But that's just my opinion. And then I said, what can be done about it? I ask you how you feel about this new single bid system. All right, guys, before I move it on to the Bob Thompson quotes, what do you think about that?
Oof, I got a bit to say on that. What do you think, though?
No, go ahead, Immaculate.
To me, this reeks. We get this news about Fox and ESPN no longer being big time competitors. Now they are partners, which allows them to technically, legally, I don't want to say conspire together, collude together. Now we have ESPN putting in an offer to control all the rights with the CFP. Oh, and side note, it also gives them the ability to sublease these out to someone else at their own leisure, at their will. Like, they can decide who gets it and who doesn't. Well, I just guess maybe that the one that they might be willing to do that with is Fox, and then they would be cutting all the others out. And by doing this just through ESPN, they're controlling the price and keeping it low. Now that these two are working together, they want that low cost, low price. Instead of at $2 billion, we're at 1.3. That's in the benefit to ESPN and Fox. If this is really them working together to control this, I don't know. It's starting to stink a little bit. We'll see how this plays out. That might not be the case, but it's just looking like this is ESPN controlled and Fox is working with them. What do you think about that, Moan? You think that's a possibility? Or
I listen. I think this.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
I think you summed it up. You were nails. So
I like hearing that, because I spend a lot of time on this stuff, and getting you guys to sign off really is something that's important to me. So I appreciate it.
You pegged it right there. That is, I don't think it's coincidental at all. Not at all.
There was a reason I put it out early today. I was hoping to generate some conversation around it. But so that's something to think about. We'll talk about probably on Friday, follow up on it. But I want to get right to Bob Thompson's quotes from yesterday, because those are actual quotes, and we can work off of his conversation there. And then I'm hoping he pops in before the top of the hour, and he can answer some more questions directly. But first, his first quote is in response to the Andrew Marchand article. ESPN and the college football playoff are in agreement to a 6-year, $7.8 billion rights extension pending the CFP resolving all of its outstanding issues. Just a reminder, some of those outstanding issues, Immaculate.
Well, first of all, foremost is the 5+7 situation that's been ongoing. That's still doesn't look to me like it's anywhere determined. We've been told, actually by Schultz himself, that they're looking to finalize and have the final vote on that here next Tuesday, I think. Anyways, so that's the big one that's hanging out there. They still have to even figure out what they're even going to do in 2026. They recently just did the 18 policy. Oh God, there was one more. There's been
House versus NCAA. I mean,
that's looming over all of this.
Yeah.
That's like the peak problem. And one thing we've talked about in between all of us too is how this CFP situation has been an ongoing problem, but it's kind of now been dwarfed by NCAA. And I think that might be good to note for folks because it's probably changing some of the minds in that boardroom. Like previously, they might have been all up in arms, ready to fight over this few million and that few million. But now, with so many bigger pressing issues, I kind of wonder if some of these folks are just like, we just need to get this figured out because this is small time. And that's kind of crazy in itself to think that these huge numbers are small time. But in the meantime, while this is going on, it's looking like ESPN is kind of trying to take advantage. So the CFP is kind of on assault by all sides. I'm really starting to wonder if it's going to last. We'll see.
OPD Don, I love this comment. I want to follow up on it. If Bob Thompson can't get here because of his schedule, could he possibly do a recording with you guys off air to be aired later? Absolutely. I'm going to ask him that. I'll sign off tonight, let him get through his Valentine's, and I'll contact him tomorrow and see if we can't, if he can't come live on the show, maybe next week, that we could do a recording and I could just ask him the questions. If you guys have questions, send them to me in a DM on Twitter, and I'm happy to consider them. I mean, I've got 5 or 6 that I could do off the top of my head, but there's a lot of good questions out there. So if you have any good questions, send them a DM to me, and I'll try to bring those up when we have Bob on, whenever that is, because he will be here. It's just a matter of timing and schedule. So thank you, Opie. I appreciate you bringing that up, and yeah, I'll follow up on it for sure. All right. So Bob Thompson replies to this, and he says, seems light to me. And that was our first blush too. We're like, wait a second. That isn't very much money considering how much they paid in the last round. Says, seems light to me. Let's say the 4 first-round games next season are worth $15 million each, or $60 million. Add that to year 11 of the current deal on the reported, $685 million that they're already doing, and you are around $895 million in year 11 and $935 in year 12. Discount the $1.3 billion average on the new 6-year deal back to year 1, and you're at $1.16 billion. So an increase of only 25% coming from last year of a stale 12-year deal to year 1 of a new deal. Maybe no other bidders.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
when he
basically
came out with
saying
that,
what we're saying, right?
Yeah, but he's same as what we're saying, but he's had his expertise in understanding the numbers and how these things work out and break down, that he can just look at it and kind of just figure this all out just in a line, like how it likely is. Now, those aren't going to be the exacts, but those are probably close enough to reality that I would look at that and say, yeah, that's probably true. He used to write these deals, so he knows how they're generally going to be done. And when you look at it, it was just really shocking to see the 1.3, and people are like, oh my God, that's a huge number. And we're sitting here going, guys, no, this is actually very low. And I responded to him, and he came up with another one after this one as well. And I don't think that this goes, not at this price. I think that this is kind of like a first offer, but we'll see.
It's a negotiation. It
Yeah.
hasn't been approved yet. Yeah. Sorry if I was reading that and you guys didn't see it. I apologize. I thought I switched to the tweet, so I'm sorry. You guys were seeing me read and you actually couldn't see it. That was a mistake on my part. Moen, do you want to add anything to that before we move down into this?
No, I think Immaculate's right. This is him. This is Bob saying everything we're saying in a much more diplomatic way.
Oh yeah, he's not going to say the stuff like I put in my tweet.
Right.
He's not going to say. I mean, he's a pro, right? So, yeah. And then somebody else replied, Buff him up says, why didn't this go out to bid? We just talked about that. You say it sounds light. I say it looks crooked. We talked about that. So then he replies very, very politely. He says, or politically correct, I should say, per this story, and he has a second story posted there, Hancock states that they were in fact outside of the exclusive ESPN window. The fact that there are no other networks involved leads me to believe that the structure wasn't of any interest, i.e., or that is, no semis or championship games available.
Yep. And that's ESPN not willing to bargain off of those, like, because they hold the rights to those for the next 2 years. And so trying to find, like, write out a deal for the next 6 years, where in the first 2 years of it, you only get this much, and then maybe you get more later. I'm guessing those other competitors were saying, no, we want in on the good stuff, not just the first round games.
Right.
So, and without any previous numbers for these new games to show, it's a hit and miss. It's a toss up. They don't really know what to offer for those. We don't, because it technically isn't going to be the same value as the existing games, because they'll be earlier round games. So what do you say is a fair price for those? So the first 2 years would have to be like your guinea pig years, and probably no one wants to pay to be the guinea pig, because you might end up losing. So I think ESPN might end up making good on this and then controlling the sub licensing.
Hey, Moen, real quick, why don't you run through everybody what we're doing for our gifting program and how that works?
Yeah, you can gift memberships to members of the community just by going down to the cash sign at the bottom of the chat window, clicking that, and you should see membership gifting. If you click there, you can gift memberships to the community, and we will shout those out, and we will heap praise upon you.
Much praise. The people
Much
who give
praise.
gifts get better preferred access, I want to say. Like them a little more. Moen, do you want to add anything else to what Immaculate just said on that?
No, I think, again, nails.
Okay. Moving down the line, Kelly Burchell says Fox is already receiving a cut from the recently announced streaming agreement. NBC seems more interested in getting the NBA contract. That only leaves CBS. And Bob replied, and he says, actually, while the equity is a third each in the new streaming venture, what is ultimately distributed is dependent on what you are contributing in terms of programming. So what does that mean?
That means all things being equal, they're not equal. ESPN is clearly going to put more towards this. They have more sports programming than the other two, so they're going to probably take the lion's share of the money. The only thing Warner Brother Discovery is really bringing is NCAA basketball. They've got some NBA rights right now, but we don't know if they're going to keep the NBA rights. NBC has said they're very interested in getting those NBA rights. So if Turner Broadcasting loses those, the only sports they have on offer are AEW wrestling and NCAA basketball tournament.
Immaculate, you want anything to that?
No, I think he's dead on with that. There's just no way I'm going to see them just have some simplistic, okay, you get a third, you get a third, you get a third. But when in reality, ESPN might bring 7/10 of the content and they're only getting paid a third. That's just not going to happen. So it's probably very complicated, a very long contractual agreement that spells all of this out in terms of how much you put in is how much you get out and how that gets figured. I definitely think that I would go with what Bob says on that for sure.
You guys have put out a ton of comments, and I haven't been able to really flag many of them. Here's one from Steve Ojai, Florida, that says, can't get Hancock out of the CFB fast enough. So let's talk about that. Isn't one incentive for the breakaway leagues, the autonomous leagues, to separate themselves so they can get out from underneath the NCAA umbrella?
Well, in terms of what he's going on with the Hancock, he's kind of a last year guy in there. You know, to have him being the guy who's the point person with this deal with ESPN, I don't want to say anyone is corrupt. I'm just pointing out to the potential of it, that he's going on his way out the door, and he's possibly also the one who's negotiating, the point man negotiating maybe the most important deal in the CFP's history that could be life and death for them. They may decide this isn't the best thing going forward. So I'm with him. I would like to actually see the general come in and start to work on this, because that's his future. Whereas Hancock, he's going out the door.
Agreed. All right, let's move on to a couple of you. Drop that comment really quick. Farther down in this, Kelly Burchell replied saying, no doubt there are special allocations in the OA. What's that?
Operating agreement.
operating agreement, and likely ad revenue drawn from the broadcast rights stays with the rights holder. However, Fox indirectly still has the benefit of the additional CFB draw, which will keep subscriptions stable. So why overpay? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I agree. Why pay more?
Yeah, no, the two networks that used to always be used as the competition against each other to negotiate against one another, they're working together now. Like, to me, it's pretty evident. This changes so much for college football right now. These guys got to be reeling a little bit, wondering, okay, how are we going to go forward if we can't actually play these two off against each other?
Let's get to some comments. Edward Wayner says, when schools end up having to pay football athletes, could you see having 2 spring games, 1 inter-squad game and 2 second against an FCS team? In my opinion, more money and would help integrate portal transfers. It's an interesting idea. I've never heard that before. What do you guys think about that?
I think the injury risk is too high.
Okay.
Probably.
It is another way to generate revenue.
I mean, I think they're all probably looking at what Colorado did with their spring game and how much attention that got and how much they were able to sell. Everyone's probably looking at, hey, could we find our own ways to monetize our spring game? Now, you're not going to have Deion Sanders to help you do that, but they might find other ways to make them a little bit better draws. And because that was a legitimate moneymaker for Colorado.
Yeah, it was the first time it ever happened there. So another comment, all we do is win, win, win. Says Notre Dame will be backed into a corner and only will have access to what is that? The Sun Belt, Mountain West, MAC, etc. AAC, I think would be on that list. What do you guys? Yeah, all the G5s. What do you guys think about that?
No, Big 12 would cut them the same deal that the ACC cut them.
Probably.
But do they want to travel in the Big 12? I don't know.
Probably not, but they definitely don't want to travel in the Sun Belt.
West, I think this is just, I think he's right. Backing them into a corner means them being forced to join the SEC or the Big 10, and it's the Big 10, right? So,
I mean,
they could go SEC.
I would say Big 10 or ACC. I don't think the SEC serves their needs. I think they'd almost rather go with the Big 12. Call me crazy, but just because they use football as a recruiting also for students,
right?
And the areas in which they get lots of students, they actually want to go there and play to be relevant to those people as they're growing up and seeing them. So the SEC is just in a very Southeast regional type of conference. It really does not suit their needs.
All right. Let's see here. Bob's replying. Yes, I want Bob. Yeah. Bob Thompson, everybody. Bob Thompson is joining the chat.
Good to know he's all right.
Yes, all right. I want Bob.
Bob Thompson has joined the chat. Let me get this notice out right now. He's going to be joining. Let me make sure he joins. So everybody stick with us. Bob Thompson is going to be here. He just replied to me. I want to make sure he saw.
I'm telling you, the traffic situation right now over here where we're both at, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and says he got caught up in that.
All right. Let me send that out. Let me go back to our screen. Bob Thompson's going to be in the house. We don't need to share anything except for I do want to bring up that tweet that I did. Where did I put that? There it is. All right. Really quick, a couple more comments while we're waiting. WB also has Major League Baseball and NHL. And let me get here and make sure I'm not missing a reply. Okay, he's seen it, so he should be here. And then the next comment is Rock Chalk 94 says, I don't think Notre Dame does anything this cycle. I think pigs have a greater chance to fly.
Well, they got their deal to 29. They can sit and see how this plays out.
Moen, you're going to leave?
No, I'm not leaving. I'm just letting Immaculate take the role on
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I knew what you guys were going to be doing. All right. Well, we can't do anything till he joins us. I hope he doesn't have connection problems. Tell us a story, Immaculate.
A story. I hope. Man, I am the worst for that. I think a Targaryen.
Give us something you tracked
better
today
at
that we haven't talked about the last week.
Well, you know what? We could talk a little Schultz. You want to talk a little Schultz? I know that's been something that's been on your
Yeah,
plate
please
here.
go ahead. Yeah, that's a good idea. Washington State President Kirk Schultz.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see that now he's finally saying, and as I go into that, looky here.
There's Bob Thompson. We can talk about Kirk Schultz another day.
Another
Bob,
time.
how you doing?
No, let's talk about Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you saw my question last night and you replied to it. Let's jump into that right away. So Kirk Schultz basically tells the world what he wants, which is college football playoff access like the Pac-12 used to have. He wants the same money, and he wants that to continue ad infinitum in time. What do you think about these demands he made yesterday?
Well, you're never going to get anything unless you ask for it. So I guess I can't blame him there. I still think
Very
that
true.
at the end of the day, they're going to get the P5 money the next 2 years, which they've pretty much already been told they will. And then they'll say, look, you got to show us what the conference looks like before we grant you anything beyond, before we grant you anything. We got to see what it is. And which makes sense because, things could fall apart between now and then. And, it might look a lot better than just a merger with the Mountain West. So, well, we'll see. But I did like hearing that he kind of said, look, these two things aren't, the 5-7 and us getting the money or getting the continued P5 level aren't tied together. We're not going to tie them together. So I hope he was sincere in saying that because this stuff all needs to be put to rest. Like,
Do you believe he's sincere in that though, Tom?
I don't know. I gave up thinking of what
I got you. Yeah, you don't want to
what
say
presidents think a long time ago.
I like that. I gave up. I like that right there. All right. Let's see here. Let me get my screen all taken care of. Okay. So today, I don't know if you saw a tweet I put out, Bob, but I summarized kind of what our group came to think about the college football playoff negotiation they're currently doing. The numbers you commented on last night. You mind if I read that, share it with you, and then we can discuss it?
Sure.
Okay. Let me bring that up. So this is a tweet I put out today. It says, to anyone concerned about the new college football playoff negotiation, I say this. The new project connecting WB, Fox, and ESPN announced last week was a necessary step to avoid cries of collusion and monopoly this week. If all three were working together now, then ESPN can claim they aren't controlling the process. However, we know better. The purpose of the broadcasting agreement is to stifle competition and go to a single bid system. In turn, this is essentially price fixing, keeping the cost down. And I ask a couple questions. What can be done about it? And I ask you how you feel about this single bid system. So first, what are your thoughts about what I tweeted there?
Well, I'm not a big fan of accusing people of price fixing. I can understand how that could be viewed. I think you have to understand what the Warner Brothers, Discovery, ESPN, Fox kind of offering is going to be. And that is, basically you're going to get paid based on what you're bringing to the party. And if your license fee for ESPN is $10 and all the Fox channels are $5 and the WBD channels are all $2, you're at $17. And so, ESPN is going to get 10/17 of that money. So it really doesn't do anybody any good to say, we're going to stay out because it keeps the price down. That won't do any good. And on top of that, the first thing, if you want the government to start looking at you, you have that kind of stuff out there, or any indication of that, because they will go after you tooth and nail, and they'll, kill this venture before it even gets a chance to get started. So,
and you think that could happen?
I think that the government will look at it. I don't know, though, that it's any different than some of the other streaming services that are out there, other than, there's a slight delivery difference in that they're putting their entire channel online, as opposed to with Peacock and Paramount Plus. It's just offerings as opposed to a streamed version. Now, there are others, though, that YouTube TV, Hulu Plus Live TV, which basically do the same thing. They're just repackaging as opposed to the individual networks doing it themselves. So I expect that the government will look at it. I think there's already been some complaints from Fubo and probably will be some complaints from others. And I think for those of you who might have seen the Senate, I think it was the Senate, no, it was the Congressional House of Representatives hearing about the sports rights a couple of weeks ago. And the guy from DirecTV was on it, and John Oran from Sports Business Journal, now Puck, was on it as well. And every question was about the football game behind the playoff game behind the paywall.
Right.
And so I think that's gonna, this whole sports streaming thing is kind of at the top of some people's mind in DC. So it's going to get looked at. Although personally, I don't think there's an issue. So, and the last thing you want to do is show some evidence that there was some sort of, scheming or whatever, cooperation on the CFB deal. I don't think that took place. What I think happened was a couple of things. First of all, as an incumbent, you always have an advantage because you have certain you have an exclusive negotiating period. You have certain back end rights that may give you a right to match, a right of first refusal, all sorts of different things. So that's, it's always from day one, it's been advantage ESPN. Maybe the CFP guys were not comfortable splitting the deal. Maybe they figured we'd rather just deal with one broadcaster and let them parcel off games if they decide they can't take it or take it all or don't want to take it all from a financial standpoint. So that's one. Number two would be what was offered to the other broadcasters didn't appeal to them. So if I can see, they went and said, okay, the first round games, the first round on campus games that are going to have some NFL competition probably on some nights or some days. And you get some quarters, maybe half the quarter. So you're getting 6 games, but you're not getting anything beyond the quarterfinals. If I'm Fox, if I'm somebody else who might be entered in this stuff, I don't want just the early stuff without having the, some of the premier events at the end of the day. It's kind of like, look at the Big Ten football package and how, even though Fox kind of ran the auction, everybody got a piece of it. Everybody got some good games. NBC got to be able to put some stuff behind the paywall. I think that next Caitlin Clark game is going to be on Peacock. It's going to be outrage again.
Right.
Not unlike when the first Ohio State game was on. Mullen, you remember that? What happened in Columbus?
I saw people buying television sets, Bob, at Best Buy because they couldn't get Peacock on their TV set. So they went and got brand new TVs.
You got to buy a Roku.
And then the other thing is they parceled it out so that everybody kind of got what they want, but they also got some of the champ games.
Right.
And so to run the deal like they did, the CFP, if they weren't willing or weren't able because of whatever rights ESPN may have had to offer anything beyond kind of the first 4 is what I'm calling those first games, the quarters, which are the they would be the four New Year's Day bowls that aren't the semifinals in any individual year. If that's all they were offering, I could see how some people would say, not really interested. And then the last thing is, look, when some numbers, and I was one of those people that were throwing around numbers that started with a 2, that was back when the Big Ten deal just went down and everything was, everyone was fat and happy. a lot's changed since then. The economy hasn't done well. Certainly the broadcast model and the linear television model is challenged and remains challenged. So it could have just been, people decided they didn't want to spend any money. So at the end of the day, I still maintain the number's a little light.
Mhm.
And the other thing that's interesting is it hasn't been voted on.
Right.
Nope.
Somebody else mentioned today, I saw that it's very interesting that none of the ESPN reporters have reported it.
I think I know who might have said that, but yep.
Yes.
Was that you?
Yeah, we mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. we mentioned that
And
last
that's
time.
very interesting because, between, their folks, they're pretty good about, getting a phone call from somebody, I'm sure in PR, and said, hey,
They would have been on it.
Yeah, they'd have been on it. And so, maybe they don't want to make it, maybe they feel that it is some way hinders some of the votes that are coming up this week. With what we were just talking about with Pac-2, things
Right.
like that. So,
Right.
there's a lot of things that could be still at play. But I like to think that, maybe it's not all done quite yet.
Immaculate.
Yeah, a lot there. And I remember when you were posting, I was just watching it going, man, I hope he keeps going because we were all talking about it, and you're kind of going along the same lines as us, but you were just offering so much detailed knowledge, so that was much appreciated. I guess I'm going to try to approach this as nicely as I can, but I have to ask, with that number being so low, and with ESPN having the ability to sub-license, and with now we know that there is some kind of a business partnership there between them and Fox, does that not also possibly benefit Fox if ESPN gets that at a low rate? And because then they're not competing against each other. It's not driving the price up, and they could just kind of a la carte maybe pick some things, and maybe ESPN gives them more this way than they would have got through straight up, competitive bidding.
Well, certainly, if you look at the venture, the new co, whatever you want to call it, Spulu, as somebody called it. I thought
What is it?
Sports Hulu. That's funny.
Sports-
That's good.
Okay,
Sports
yeah, I
Hulu.
thought you said something else. That did not sound good. I thought you said something else. Paul.
Spulu.
Okay.
To the extent that the content that those three partners have is stronger and potentially brings more people to it, is good. It's also good if ESPN just remains strong to keep the bundle strong, on linear TV. It's also good for ESPN because they're still going to go out and sell ESPN, the flagship, on a direct-to-consumer basis, a la carte, away from the bundle that
Right, the DTC.
right
Awesome.
away from everything they're doing with Fox and WBD. So, I can see how you can come to that conclusion.
Which could be wrong. I saw it. I was like,
No, it's, to me, the interesting thing is, you're coming off a 12-year deal. That's like ancient. And
Right.
to get that kind of an increase, because what I always look at is what the last year is versus the jump off to the first year of the new deal and what that increase is. Everybody always compares average annual value to average annual value. And as I pointed out yesterday, that's a bit of a fool's game unless the contracts are exactly the same in terms of the amount of content, in terms of how long the deals are, things like that. And so looking at a 12-year deal to a 6-year deal, the average annual value just plus they added like 25, 30% more games by picking up the first four.
Right.
And so people look at it and say, oh, well, they doubled the average annual value. Well, yeah, but it's a 12-year deal versus a 6-year deal, and it's 11 games versus 7 games. And so that you really can't do that. But if you look at what the money is right now, and if you assume, say, $15 million for the first 4 games, so $60 million on top of what they're paying now, the number's in the 9 something, and they're going to 950, 980 range, I think, or something like that. And they're 935, I think I've got them at. and they're going to start, it's going to be about 1.16, which is basically the 1.3 billion. And then you discount it by like 4.5% each year to get to the starting number. So that's not a huge increase,
No.
At all. When you really look at it and you look at like some of the things that what just went down with the Big 10, that was from last year to first year, that was still a huge jump. And now granted, they added some partners and added some content and things like that. So that's the part that still surprises me. But, again, maybe the bidding just wasn't as, fervent as we all expected it that it would be. A lot of people, myself included, thought this was going to be a showdown and that at some way, shape, or form, Fox would walk away with some and ESPN would walk away with some. And at this point, it doesn't appear as though that's going to happen.
Just so everybody knows, we got only a couple more questions. Moen's next, Immaculate.
Okay, go ahead. I had a follow up with that, but go ahead, Moen.
Let's let Moen get his question in. And we're only going to go to about quarter after. I got to let Bob go.
Yep. Real quick, Bob.
Lost my microphone, sorry.
That's okay.
You had mentioned the article coming out from The Athletic. Hypothetically, who do you think leaked that and what were their motives?
Tough one.
That's a good one.
Come on, Columbo. Let's go. Figure it out, Bob.
I don't think it would behoove ESPN to have it out there.
Okay.
Could have been someone at CFP. Could have been another network. Could have, there's a lot more people involved on the CFP side of things than there is on the TV side of things. This type of stuff is kept pretty close to the vest. On the TV side thing, there'd probably be a handful of people maybe who knew what's going on. But on the CFP side of thing, there's a lot of people, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You got the board of managers and you've got the board of governors, directors, who I can't remember what they all are. And then from there, you've got all the ADs who are probably being kept up to date by their commissioners of what's going on. So it could be a number of people. I didn't see a lot of. If it was way off, there probably would have a lot of people been crying foul.
Right.
And I didn't really see any of that.
In fact, I would say the response to it was quite tepid. It didn't make the shockwaves that I thought it would.
Yeah, I guess everybody was concerned about how many people watched the Super Bowl, but it was very low key, and there really wasn't any huge protest that this is.
Could you say that this leak is that protest though by someone that doesn't like that number and maybe wants it out there in public for maybe some other competitors to be like, hey, wait, we might be able to compete with that. I mean,
it could be. You're right. It could be stirring the pot to hope that there's another number out there, a higher number out there, as somebody could come in at the last minute. I don't know who that would be, or it could be a combination of people. I think, one other thing that kind of struck me was if this number's so low, there better not be anything behind a paywall like a ESPN Plus or a Peacock or anything like that.
Oh man, that would be terrible if they did that.
Yeah, and so it could have been that maybe there was more money out there if the CFP had agreed to that, but if they didn't, certainly, the bidders could say, well, if I can't do that, I can't really maximize what I need to do here. So we're out.
The question I had last week for you, Bob, is do you have an estimated price for this WB ESPN Fox service?
Well, there's two prices. There's going to be the introductory price,
right,
and then there's going to be the real price. And the introductory price, I think, in order to kind of not tick off all their current distributors on the cable and satellite side of things, and if you look at what some services, like some of the RSNs that have launched direct to consumer products, it's depending on where you are, it's $20 to $30. Then New York and Boston are up higher. The Bally's guys are at like $19.99. So that's a number that had to kind of basically pass muster with their distributors, their existing distributors, because it's kind of coming in on top of your cable operators. So yeah, I think if you add those 3 channels up and what their license fee is to their current existing distributors, you're probably going to look at something that is going to have to start with the 4. So 40 to 50 bucks. But I think to really replace what you're going to lose by going outside of the bundle. I mean, the bundle, as we've talked about, has been the greatest business in the world because you're getting paid by 100% of the people, even though only 15%, say, of the people actually watch your channel. So that means you've got to, almost get 6 times in order to stay even. You got to get 6 times the rate in order to stay even with a single subscriber on the bundle.
So you're saying something like 450 for the year?
Yeah, they probably have a year package. They probably, 45 a month, something like that. But then at some point, they're going to bump it. I mean, if you look at the streaming services now, I mean, Netflix is up to $17. I mean, it used to be
they have all gone through the roof.
ESPN's Plus is up, but there's also going to be a ton of packaging. They're bringing. If you're a Hulu subscriber, you'll be able to get that through this package, and ESPN Plus is going to be part of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Max. I'm not sure if Warner Brothers Discovery is even going to do the Bleacher Report thing that they were talking about earlier. That would have carried their NHL and NBA and whatever NCAA games they have. So there's going to be a whole mixing and matching and to use that word again, rebundling of all this stuff. And it's pretty much what everybody expected, that there would be some consolidation and some rationalization of the streaming market. It has to happen.
Do you think there'll be any bundles involved with this? Like, say, if I only wanted what Fox was offering, or like Time Warner with maybe NBA. Like, if that's all I wanted, could I get a bundle for just that, or do you think they're going to kind of force you into taking the larger amount just because of the way they pay out, to each other and with each other?
I would be surprised if you can a la carte this offering.
Okay. So
I mean, although ESPN has said that they're going to offer ESPN the flagship outside of this package as a separate, but it's going to be slightly different. As Iger said, there's going to be, a lot of fantasy stuff, a lot of ESPN bet stuff, a lot of statistics stuff that'll be layered heavily on there, which creates a different value proposition than just the main channel feed, which is what will air in the new bundle with Fox and WBD.
Okay.
All right. Bob, that's awesome. And we really appreciate you coming on tonight. It's Valentine's. Get back to your sweetheart. Appreciate you coming on. We'll have you on we'll try to touch base again and maybe do a show in 2 or 3 weeks. Is that okay?
Sounds good. You guys stay
Awesome.
good.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming
All
in.
right. Thanks a lot,
All
Bob.
right.
Appreciate it.
See you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
There he is.
Look, as far as I know, we're the only show Bob Thompson went on in the last 2 days. Now, he might have been on 365. I missed it. He might have been on 247. I might have missed it. But for him to be here and answer these questions is genius. And we really appreciate him coming on. What were your final thoughts about that, guys?
It was kind of in line with a lot of what we were saying, but man, just his way from his knowledge of how the industry works to just cut down the little details. I hadn't seen anyone else say this actually doesn't mean they're going to get 1.3 in the first year. They're going to get 1.16. Like it got even smaller. It's like, oh, Jesus, like you got to talk to someone like that to know those details, because you're just not going to hear that from media because they're not going to know.
Moen?
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing his ideas for the motives if we release that number and why they released that number. Again, I think I mentioned it yesterday. I think it's somebody trying to put that number out there to see if somebody else is going to pay more. Whether that's NBC and Paramount teaming up, or a streamer getting involved, or some kind of package with a paywall on, that might happen.
He certainly didn't shoot down the idea.
Yeah.
Well, and I think where I'm confused a little bit is the intermeshing of the different services. Is this one client going to replace ESPN Plus, or am I going to have to pay for both?
I think it's bundled in there. He talked about it being a bundle with it.
He did, but I don't
you're
think
probably going to get
right.
You're probably going to get your basic package, your package with ESPN Plus, your package with that and Hulu, your package with that, Hulu and Disney Plus.
Okay.
Remember what he was saying? There was another announcement that came after this that ESPN, Disney, they're actually going to create an online streaming ESPN. I think that's probably ESPN Plus expanded, my opinion.
Okay.
So you'll probably be in that, but the price could go up. But I don't think you'll have to get this bundle with Fox and Time Warner in order to get that.
All I'm hearing is dollar signs, guys.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's all I am hearing. None of this is making things cheaper for us. And the bundle dying, yeah, it's kind of been a hassle. People wanted a la carte services, but to be honest, it's been the best way to get everything in one place. And if it goes away, at least the way that we see it now, a lot of people are going to be impacted. All right. Really quick, let me circle back. I appreciate everybody being on tonight. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube. Follow us all on Twitter. And take your time to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment or question. We always love to see those. We're very grateful that Bob Thompson was able to join us tonight on Valentine's Eve. I encourage all of you watching right now, get with your partner, whoever that may be, and enjoy the evening. Spend that special time because it's really important. I appreciate everybody being here tonight before that. And you guys have any final thoughts?
Well, thanks for getting him to come on after everything that happened yesterday to get such a quick return from Bob. Just thank you to you, Nate, for that. I think that was pretty special. Hopefully everyone got something from that. I know there were some people coming out with questions, and it's very limited time. Would love to see him come back again, and we could do maybe a little more general questioning. But you guys got to remember, we got to be a little careful with him at times too. He's still in the industry, so I just hope that everyone was happy with that and had a good time, because I know I was.
Moen, are we going to be able to make that a super cut and get that out to everybody?
We can cut that out. Probably
Excellent.
Probably won't be until tomorrow because Moen has plans for tonight.
No rush. No, but I think it's a good idea for us.
Can't rush Targaryen.
That's right.
What were your final thoughts, Moen?
Yeah, I just want to say I know there were a lot of people with questions in the chat for Bob. Unfortunately, like Immaculate said, we normally try to get to those questions, but we had Bob for a very limited time tonight, so he was just able to pop in. He's got plans. We appreciate him doing that for us. He didn't have to, and he did, which speaks a lot for him. It also speaks a lot for Nate and his pervasive nature.
Relationship builder, we'll call them.
Yeah, I'll take that. That makes me sleep well tonight. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate you two for being here with me while I'm with Bob. And we had a great show, even though it's aborted, or not aborted, but abbreviated. Appreciate everybody being with us. Friday night is our normal show. It's going to be at 7 Eastern. It's a party. Come. We're going to talk about anything and everything. If you have questions or comments, things you want us to cover, send them in DMs to anybody on the team, including Wild Ute, and we'll try to get those addressed. We might have a couple of guests. Who knows? It's a catch-all. It's a drinking game night, according to
You never know. Just show up. It'll be fun.
And then tomorrow night, probably about 7:30, but I'll firm that time up. I'm going to be doing a therapy session, my therapy, and I'm going to be learning from Washington State and Oregon State fans about what their stand is with Kirk Schultz as they deal with these negotiations for their survival, frankly, and how that can be approached. It's an open conversation. I hope everybody comes and is in good spirits. I'm going to be having pretty much anybody join the show that wants to give me their idea on how to do it right. And I encourage all of you to come too. It's not a moneymaker for us at all. It's just basically get everybody in the room, and instead of doing it on Twitter, it's much better if we're face-to-face and we can take comments directly from the comments section. So that's tomorrow night, probably about 7:30 Eastern, but I'll give you more notifications tomorrow. Other than that, everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble if you're drinking. Drinking game tonight. We didn't say Georgia Tech at all, so I'm not going to worry about drinking game, but make sure you drive safe.
He just did.
Stay out of trouble. What is this? Heart. Mowing hearts, everybody. All right. Everybody
Love you
stay out of
guys.
trouble. Have a great night. Peace.